Good afternoon. We are here for another Mediumship literature group. We meet each other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. We are reading the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. And we read every, like some passages and make some discussions. So if you would like to join us in our live discussions, send me a message through my Facebook page, Revenant, or my website, revenant.world, and I'll be happy to add you to our live discussions here. So we are going to continue where we stopped last time, which is question 361, moral and intellectual qualities. So this chapter is about returning to the body, like when the spirits reincarnate and go back to the material world. So moral and intellectual qualities. Question 361. Where do good and bad human qualities come from? From the spirit who is incarnated in the person. The purer of the spirit is the more inclined to goodness a person will be. So in a good person, the incarnation of a good spirit, in a cruel person, the incarnation of a bad spirit. Yes, but there's another question. Yes, but another answer, sorry. But you should say of an imperfect spirit, otherwise it will seem that there are spirits who will always be bad, devils, as you call them. 362. When a sly, foolish spirit incarnates in a person, what kind of character will that person have? A slay of foolish spirit. I'm going to read it again. When a slay, foolish spirit incarnates in a person, what kind of character will that person have? The person will be irresponsible, deceitful, and sometimes mischievous. 363. Do spirits have any feelings or appetites that we don't? No. If they did, they would communicate them to you. 364. It is only one spirit that gives a person both moral and spiritual qualities. Certainly, it is the same. You do not have two spirits in you. Question 365. Intelligence obviously indicates advancement, so why are some very smart people also morally corrupt? Answer: because the spirit incarnates in the person has underdeveloped ethical principles. Also, the person tends to give into the influence of others, even less evolved spirits. Spirits progress very slowly, and they don't progress simultaneously in all directions. During one lifetime, a spirit may advance intellectually, during another morally. 366. Some people believe that our various intellectual and moral qualities are the products of many different spirits incarnated in one person, with each spirit having some special role. How should we view this theory? It is absurdity, because clear the moment you give it serious thought. Each spirit is destined to possess all possible aptitudes, but to progress, it must possess one soul and unitary will. If a person were an amalgam of different spirits, a unitary unitary wouldn't be possible, and the spirit would have no individuality, since at the death of the body, all the spirits would fly off in different directions, like birds escaping from a cage. Humans often complain of not understanding certain things, and yet how clever you have in multiplying difficulties. Even though the simplest and most natural explanations are right before you. This view is just another instance of the way you often mistake effects for causes. It is like the pagan view of God. The pagans believe that in the existence of as many gods as there are observed phenomena in the universe. But even among pagans, the more sensitive ones saw in those phenomena only a variation of effects caused by the same God. Discussion. On this subject, the physical and spiritual realms offer us several comparisons. For instance, in previous eras, when our intention was focused exclusively on the physical appearance of natural phenomena, we believed in the existence of many kinds of matter. Today, we understand that all those phenomena, varied as they might appear, are actually the result of changes in the single element form of matter. Likewise, the range of human abilities and in a manifestation of one cause, the incarnated spirit within, not of several spirits. You can compare the human beings to a pipe organ. It produces many different kinds of sounds using same air. In other words, there are not as many different kinds of air as there are sounds. Furthermore, if several spirits animated each person, every time someone acquired or lost an aptitude or tendency, it would be because a spirit was entering or leaving the person's body. But that would mean that the person lacked individuality and consequently responsibility. Fortunately, the manifestations of spirits who have demonstrated their personality and indicated that have conclusively disproved the theory of multiple spirits. It's interesting that we have discussed that last time, right?
Very much in continuity.
Yeah, I know, right? It's very important to have that clear, because especially we need to have that understanding of responsibility. So many spirits would give no responsibility for that individual. If they have many spirits, like what would be the default? Who would be responsible for this or that choice? Would be makes no sense. So each person has one spirit in each incarnation, and that the individual has one spirit throughout their whole process of evolution. And that's the whole point of reincarnation, which is consistent with the law of evolution that we can see in every part of nature, both spiritually and materially. All right. Any other comments about this part, Catherine? Or what you understand, so we can also share with the audience?
I appreciate the fact that they point out that there are no bad spirits. Mm-hmm. There are imperfect spirits that might be far along on the journey, but it kind of like, so especially when we're talking about spiritism and we're kind of like meditating on the idea that things like that could be possible, which is not very easy for the average person. I think a lot of the time the fear kind of takes over, fear of bad spirits, fear of poltergeist, fear of movies and horror stories and haunted houses. And I think this kind of simplifies the matter. Like there are no bad spirits. There are just spirits that haven't had the chance to evolve yet, or haven't had the ability or the will to evolve yet.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So there's not such a thing as eternal when it comes to stages of evolution. We all spirits have the same chance to evolve. And we all start from a very low end of the spectrum in terms of our moral and intellectual development. And our job is to develop ourselves morally and intellectually, because those are the only faculties of the spirit. Everything else fades and disappears, but our intellectual and moral faculties are the only ones that we take over through eternity. So, but never, even though considering that, yes, there's no bad spirits in the sense of eternity of their, identity per se, but we also need to be aware that there are some spirits that are very underdeveloped, and they can cause really a lot of harm. And so in that regard, we need to be aware and also cautious. Not that we need to fear them, but we need to have cautious and always align ourselves with our help, our team, our guides, our angels, to protect us and also to help us to help them, because they are in need of help. The same way as people incarnated, they also need help to get off that stage of, let's say, underdevelopment. The same way we need help to continue our development. So we are also imperfect spirits, but if we choose to have a life that's of not harming others, or trying to be the best we can, not like trying to grow, and so we are in a better shape than we have been in the past, or some other spirits who have pleasure or diligently like to harm others, either directly or indirectly. So I'm just like to say that, because there's also the other end of the spectrum who denies, right? Some spiritists who deny 100% the existence of bad spirits or underdeveloped spirits, and that everybody who is in the spiritual world is angels and pure spirits, and that's not true, right? They are there what they have been here. So it's a continuous process of evolution.
I think this approach might work well for the non-initiated, kind of like, if they don't think that it exists, they won't focus on it.
Yeah.
For like people who have lost ones, and that kind of like just want to be in touch with their loved ones that they lost. I mean, this love and light approach, because I read a few books like that were really interesting from good mediums, but I feel like if they don't need to worry on the negative spirits, or not negative, but like spirits that might be weighing them down, they won't even acknowledge their presence. Therefore, it's kind of like a protection factor.
Yeah, I have a problem with that. It's the same thing as raising kids with lies. Like fairy tales, and to some extent, yeah, kids don't have the same language and the capacity to understand the world the way we do, and we don't need to come with harsh stuff right away. But I am personally, I'm a firm believer that truth is very important. And I have seen so many examples that trying to protect a child with lies is more harmful than telling the truth. For example, in cases of adoption, some parents decide not to disclose the child that they are adopted, and that causes so many problems for the child's development that they have no idea, that is much more harmful than the truth. So the same way, like, for example, I have seen a lot of examples of loved ones, even though you're saying, oh, I just want to connect with loved ones. Sometimes loved ones can be harmful if they are not well developed. The fact that we love them doesn't make them necessarily evolved spirits, right? Depending on how they have been here, they continue to be in the other side, even if you had a good relationship with them. But if we have that attitude of 100% trust in everything they say, we can allow ourselves to be harmed by them. And also, bad spirits can disguise themselves. That's one of the attributes of underdeveloped spirits. They lie, and they can disguise themselves as loved ones, and then can lead you to do stuff or believe some stuff that's not good, is not good for you. So it's going to cause a lot of pain and even diseases, etc. So it's the same thing. Like, for example, when you are learning how to swim, right? We need to know that if you swim in the ocean, doesn't matter how skillful you are, the ocean is dangerous. You need to be cautious. You need to be responsible. And even when you are in a pool, you need to be like, know your limits and, swim according with your skills and be aware that you can die in the water. Yes, you can die in the water if you are not responsible. So you don't need to say all the time, oh, instigate fear. No, it's not about fear. It's about reality. There's a difference. So you need to be aware of the limits. So you make choices that are, it's not going to put yourself in harm. And then based on that, you can go and flow and, develop your skills and experience. So I don't know. I understand what you're saying and what those people say, but I have seen so many cases of people that have been harmed by spirits because they are not aware they existed. So therefore, they didn't know how to approach. And then those people, when they start to realize there's something there or whatever, they feel the fact, they don't know how to deal with them, because if they don't know who they are, how they exist, why they exist, and what their qualities are, and they don't know how to deal with them, so they are aggressive with them back. They are, forceful, and that's, very based on ignorance, and puts people in more and more danger. So it is necessary to understand the reality and the existence of underdeveloped spirits and why they are underdeveloped and what we need to do with them. Why is our role with them? How we can help them, how we can protect ourselves is by sharing love, is by sharing, radiating love, because love is the only protection, not ignorance. Love is the protection, not ignorance. So that's what I believe, and that's what both the Spirit's book and the Book of Spirits teaches. All right, so let's continue on influence of the body. Question 367. Do you want me to continue to read, or do you want to read?
Sure, I can go.
Thank you.
367. Does the spirit, in uniting itself with a body, identify itself with matter? Matter is only the envelope of the spirit, as clothing is the envelope of the body. A spirit uniting himself with a body retains the attributes of his spiritual nature. Does the spirit exercise his faculties in full freedom after his union with a body? The exercise of faculties depends on the organs which serve them for instrument. Their exercise is weakened by the grossness of matter. It would appear then that the material envelope is an obstacle to the free manifestation of a spirit's faculties, as the opacity of ground glass is an obstacle to the free emission of light. Yes, an obstacle which is exceedingly opaque. The action exercised upon the spirit by the gross matter of his body may also be compared to that of muddy water, impeding the movement of the objects plunged into it. 369. Is the free exercise of a spirit's faculties subordinated during his incarnation to the development of his corporeal organs? Those organs are the soul's instruments for the manifestation of its faculties. That manifestation is therefore necessarily subordinated to the degree of development and perfection of those organs, as the perfection of a piece of manual work depends on the goodness of the tool employed. 370. May we, from the influence of the corporeal organs, infer a connection between the development of the cerebral organs and that of the moral and intellectual faculties? Do not confound effect and cause. A spirit always possesses the faculties that belongs to him. But you must remember that it is not the organs that give the faculties, but the faculties that incite to the development of the organs. According to this view of the subject, the diversity of aptitudes in each man depends solely on the state of his spirit. To say that it does so solely would not be altogether correct. The qualities of the incarnated spirit are undoubtedly the determining principle of those aptitudes, but allowance must be made for the influence of matter, which hinders every man more or less in the exercise of the faculties inherent in his soul. As spirit, in incarnating himself, brings with him certain characterial predisposition, therefore, if we admit the existence for each of these of a special organ in the brain, the development of the cerebral organ is seen to be an effect and not a cause. In his faculties, if his faculties were a result of his bodily organs, man would be a mere machine without free will and would be responsible for his actions. Moreover, if such were the case, we should be forced to admit that the greatest geniuses, men of science, poets, artists, are only such because a lucky chance has given them certain special organs, when it would follow still further that but for the chance acquisition of those organs, they would not have been geniuses, and that the stupidest of men might have been a Newton, a Virgil, or a Raphael, and if he had been provided with a certain organ, as supposition still more flagrantly absurd, if we attempt to apply it to the explanation of the moral qualities. For, according to the system, Saint Vincent de Paul had been gifted by nature with such and such organ of an opposite nature, which have been a Saint Vincent de Paul, might have been a Saint Vincent de Paul. If, on the contrary, we admit that our special organs, supposing such to exist, are an effect and not a cause, that they are developed by the exercise of the faculties to which they correspond, as muscles are developed by movement, we arrive at a theory which is certainly not irrational. Let us employ an illustration equally conclusive and commonplace. By certain physiognomic signs, we recognize a man who is addicted to drink. It is those signs that make him drunkard. Or is it his drunkenness that produces those signs? It may be safely asserted that our organs are a consequence of our faculties. Should I stop here?
Yeah, just to discuss and clarify, this is really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you understand about that?
They proposed the theory that we would grow our bodies according to our spirit's needs. Am I? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's the way I understand that they explain is that everything it happens based on it happens in harmony. So if a child, let's say a child is to be born with cerebral palsy or some kind of a birth defect, and that would deprive them to develop normally, is because that spirit needs that existence, needs that experience in a material world, and it's not necessarily because the spirit is not intellectually developed, but they need that experience somehow for whatever reason in their own development as moral development. So I think it's, but also I believe that we kind of have this chemical interaction with the spirits. Our body has this chemical interaction with spirit based on the nature of our spirit, and also the choices and the evolutions that we go through during that lifetime. Our body can improve or decline. So the example that they give is the alcoholism, right? So you can destroy your organs and also have this theory of the alcoholism is genetic and all that. So is a two-way street somehow, but in some aspects, the person already born with certain organs in certain ways because of the trial that they have chosen as a spirit before they are incarnated. And along way, there's changes in the body based on the impression that spirit brings into their body in their evolutionary process. So I don't know if I made myself clear, but yeah. So what do you think about that?
I think it's an interesting viewpoint, and I think I have the feeling that it might be a bit of both, like kind of like
Absolutely.
you're dealt with an aspect that is partly genetic and that is partly maybe limited in some ways or gifted in some ways. And obviously, like, you're gonna pick those genetics if you're gonna have a soul contract with that mother that she's gonna birth you and whatnot. And so you kind of like you pick cards.
Yeah.
In a way, like you're like, okay, this could work for this incarnation.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like you pick an avatar and it's got ups and downs and
Yeah. And also to remind us of the power that the spirits have over the body, right? Like we also have seen cases of people healing themselves from incurable diseases, right? So the spirit is not limited to the body, even though it's an envelope and their manifestations depend on the body. But we are more than the physical body. So the power we have on our spirit is not limited from the body that we have in every aspect. So if we are if you have a defect, or if you have some terminal disease, or if you have some, something that we are born with, like genetic tendencies, etc., etc., we should not limit ourselves to that. If that's going to help our spirit to grow, overcoming that problem, so be it. That's going to happen. So it's very interesting, this whole interconnection, but at the same time independence that the spirit has from the body. And also because throughout our evolution as a spirit, we are individuals as a spirit. We have one spirit that goes through eternity. The spirit never dies. But we have multiple bodies depending in multiple existences, right? So one can be a man in one incarnation, a woman in another incarnation, can be a king in one incarnation, can be a slave in another incarnation. So in different kinds of body, like strong, frail, sick, healthy, all depending on what the spirit needs to its evolution. So that's very interesting. Help us to be humble and at the same time not limit ourselves too much based on what we are here in this life. It's really, really important thing for us to keep in mind. Awesome. So how we are in time. We have, let's see, how long is this section? You want to go through this next session, mental handicaps?
Sure, I can start.
Thank you.
Idiocy and madness. 371. Is there any foundation for the common belief that the souls of idiots are of a nature inferior to those of others? No, they have a human soul which is often more intelligent than you suppose, which suffers acutely from the insufficiency of its means of communication, as the dumb man suffers from the inability to speak. 372. What is the aim of Providence in creating beings so ill-treated by nature as idiots? Idiots are incarnations of spirits who are undergoing punishment and who suffer from the constraint they experience, and from their inability to manifest themselves by means of organs which are undeveloped or out of order. Then it is not correct to say that organs are without influence upon faculties. We have never said that organs are without influence. They have very great influence on the manifestation of faculties, but they do not give faculties. There is just the difference. A skillful player will not make good music with a bad instrument, but that will not prevent his being a good player. It is necessary to distinguish between the normal state and the pathologic state. In the normal state, the moral strength of an incarnated spirit enables him to triumph over the obstacles which are placed in his way by matter. But there are cases in which matter opposes a resistance so powerful that the manifestations of the spirit incarnated in it are hindered or changed from what he intended, as in idiocy and madness. These cases are pathologic, and as the soul in such states is not in the enjoyment of its full liberty, human law itself exempts such persons from the responsibility of their actions. 373. What merit can there be in the existence of beings who, like idiots, can do neither good nor evil, and therefore cannot progress? Such an existence is imposed as an expiation of the abuse which a spirit has made of a certain faculties. It constitutes a pause in its career. The body of an idiot may then contain a spirit that has animated a man of genius in a preceding existence. Yes, genius sometimes becomes a scourge when it is abused. Intellectual superiority is not always accompanied by an equal degree of moral superiority, and the greatest geniuses may have much to expiate. For this reason, they have to undergo an existence inferior to the one they have previously accomplished, which is a cause of suffering for them. The hindrances of the manifestation of his faculties thus impose upon the spirit being like chains that fetter the movement of a vigorous man. The idiot may be said to be lame in the brain, as the halt is lame in the legs and the blind in the eyes. 374. Is the idiot in the spirit state conscious of his mental condition? Yes, very often. He comprehends that the chains which hinder his action are a trial and expiation. 375. When a man is mad, what is the state of his spirit? A spirit in the state of freedom receives his impressions directly and exerts his action directly upon matter. But when incarnated, he is in an altogether different condition and compelled to act only through the instrumentality of special organs. In some or all of those organs, if some or all of those organs are injured, his actions or his impressions, as far as those organs are concerned, are interrupted. If he loses his eyes, he becomes blind. If he loses his hearing, he becomes deaf, and so on. Suppose that the organ which presides over the manifestation of intelligence and of will is partially or entirely weakened or modified in its action, and you will easily understand that the spirit, having at his service only organs that are incomplete or diverted from the proper action, must experience a functional perturbation of which he is perfectly conscious, but is not able to arrest the course. Is it then always the body and not the spirit that is disorganized? Yes, but you must not forget that just as a spirit acts upon matter, matter to a certain extent reacts upon him, and that he may therefore find himself for the time being subjected to the influence of the false impressions consequent on the vitiated state of his organs and of perception and of action. And it may happen, when this mental aberration has continued for a long time, that the repetition of the same perverted action may exercise upon his spirit an influence from which he is only delivered after his complete separation from the material impressions. How is it that madness sometimes leads to suicide? 376. In such cases, the spirit suffers from the constraint which he feels and from his inability to manifest himself freely, and he therefore seeks death as a means of breaking his chains. 377. Does the spirit of a madman continue to feel after death the derangement from which he suffered in his corporeal life? He may continue to feel it for some time after death, until he is completely freed from matter, just as a man, on waking, continues to feel for some little time the confusion in which he has been plunged by sleep. 378. How can brain disease act upon a spirit after his death? It is an effect of remembrance, which weighs like a burden upon the spirit. And as he was not aware of all that took place during his madness, he always needs a certain amount of time for recovering the hang of his ideas. It is for this reason that the continuance of his uneasiness after death is always proportioned to the longer or shorter continuance of the corporeal insanity from which he had previously suffered. The spirit, when freed from the body, still feels for a longer or shorter time, the impression of the links that united him with.
Interesting, huh?
Yep.
What do you think? It's somehow related to what we were talking before, right?
Mm-hmm. Very much in continuity.
Yeah. So,
well, they basically say that this is like being put in the corner.
mm-hmm.
This is time out for souls.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think we all have things to overcome, and some things are easier for us than others. Some things we grow out of the imperfection very easily, but some others we may linger into it, and those we linger into it are the ones who sometimes require a harsher reality for us to evolve. But it's also important for us to keep in mind that it's not a punishment in a way that we understand, right? It's not that like God got mad with you because you're a bad boy, blah, 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 all these ideas that we have as humans. No, it's like cause and effect. It's a natural thing, it's a natural course of nature. If we kind of punch the wall with our hands, the wall's gonna punch our hands back, and that's gonna cause pain and can even break our bones. But it's not because the wall was mad with us. We are the ones who punched the wall. So the action and reaction of nature, the law of physics of action and reaction is gonna cause that pain. So the same way is with those painful experiences we have through different incarnations. So it's just an effect of something that we went through. We broke some natural laws eventually, but by not evolving, by abusing some faculties or etc. And that causes that natural pain of our actions that we have initiated. So this idea that God is punishes us and is like decides bad stuff, that bad stuff's gonna happen to us. This is not true, because God is love. So ultimately, that bad experience or that painful experience we have is going to bring us eternal happiness, because as we finally understand and evolve and overcome that obstacle that has been so hard for us to overcome through that pain, we finally evolve, and that's when we reach happiness. So God always wants us to be happy, and whatever happens that is negative, that's painful, is just a consequence of our own choices. So, and that's very nice, very beautiful, and so that sector also reminds us of the differences, and also help us to respect people, right? Because sometimes people, like they said in this sector, people that was born with a mental retardation or cognitive deficiencies are not less than anybody else, right? And they probably carry a soul that's really intelligent and smart, but for some limitations of their trials in that specific lifetime, they need to go through that to evolve themselves to the next level, or a trial that they have chosen to understand better, like the human nature or whatever it is. But at the same time, we should not judge, right? Because I see a lot of spiritists or spiritualists using those kind of concepts of karma to judge each other. I have seen people telling, for example, minorities, that they are subject of racism because they have done bad stuff in past lives, so they deserve to suffer and be discriminated or be abused or whatever. So this is not the point. That's not the attitude that we should have. We should only look at ourselves, never judge each other. Sometimes that person have chosen to be in that state just to help others in a better way. We can never judge, right? Just because people are going through pain, we are going to wash our hands and not help them and not have compassion towards them and not see them as equals just because of this concept of karma being distorted, right? We can never use that to judge anyone, but to help ourselves to go through the trials we go through in our lives, because we all have shortcomings, we all have difficulties, we all have pain and obstacles in our lives. And sometimes people say, "Oh, why me? Why I'm going through this? Why I have such a difficulty and this and that? Why people make money so easy and I work so hard, so hard, and I can never become rich and a millionaire." So we need to look inside and ask God what we can learn through our difficulties. And this way we are going to grow and enrich our souls and our spirits. But the opposite happens when we judge each other, right? That's absolutely what we should not do, because judging is
spiritual bypassing is the concept you were referring to.
Can you explain further? I didn't understand.
I think when other people use spirituality to judge, I think spiritual bypassing is like the term that has been cornered lately. So it's like a tendency to use ideas and spiritual practices to avoid maybe that's as a personal defense mechanism to dismiss or avoid complicated emotions or psychological issues. I may be off a little bit here. Anyways.
Yeah, in some way is an avoidance of their own life,
yeah.
Right? Like
their own issues,
yeah, if they are avoiding to look at themselves and improve themselves and focusing on other people's problems and judging them, they are somehow doing that, avoiding their own issues.
Spiritual gaslighting.
Yes. But one way or the other doesn't serve us and doesn't bring us any good, neither to the other person who is harmed by our judgment and our comments or whatever, and especially to ourselves, because we are being the bad spirit. We are acquiring new bad karmas, so that's not good. All right, so that was very good. We learned a lot of things today through this passage. We are going to do our closing prayer and conclude our meeting for today. Dear God, thank you so much for this day and for this opportunity to be here together, to read this passage, to reflect through those knowledge wonderfully shared to us by enlightened spirits. Help us to put this in our daily lives, practice them in our daily lives so we can grow and evolve and be closer to you, and also bring healing and joy to our world and our planet. Thank you for your unconditional love. Amen. All right, so we are going to finish our meeting for today. As I mentioned in the beginning, you are all welcome to join us in our live discussions. The group is free of charge, so we meet each other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, And you are welcome to join us. If you contact me through my Facebook page, Revenant, or my website, revenant.world, I'm going to be happy to add you to our live discussions. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.